Welcome to Speak Up and Stay Alive RadiOh with author, speaker, and your host, Pat Rouleau. Finally, someone willing and able to blow the top off hidden healthcare and hospital dangers. Pat has over 20 years of experience as a professional public speaker and knows how to approach this important subject with enough humor and wit to keep you informed, entertained, and empowered. And now, your host, Pat Rouleau.
Hello, I am Pat Rouleau, and I am your favorite patient safety radio hostess, and I'm happy that we can spend this hour together. Today, I'm going to change the format of the program a bit because I have a guest and a topic that demands more than a few minutes. Last week, you heard my interview with the State of Ohio Representative Matt Lynch as we discussed smart meters that soon led us into a conversation about Agenda 21, also fakely named Sustainable Development, so that we think it's a good thing, when in fact, at least in my opinion, it is a disaster in the making. It is a topic you won't hear discussed much anywhere, and for the life of me, I don't know why. And I'm not asking you to take sides because there really is no side. When something is wrong, it is wrong. Agenda 21 is a global agenda brought on by the United Nations and signed onto by our government that is currently in progress. It is an action plan to inventory and control all of our land, water, construction, education, energy, and as you can see from what's happening to our healthcare system, to monitor and control our health. But don't take my word for it. Do your own research. I encourage you. And that is why I felt it important not only to air Matt Lynch's interview last week, but to have him back again today. So instead of our usual guest segment and game segment, I've combined the two, and in a moment, the boys and I, and Matt, will play shocking news from around the world, the Agenda 21 edition, Behind the Green Mask. And what do I mean, Behind the Green Mask? That is the title of a book by Rosa Koire that I hope you read. Agenda 21 is so scary that those in charge purposely made it a point to call it something that sounds acceptable. Sustainable development. Sounds like an environmental green concept, doesn't it? Therein lies the mask. To cover up the real agenda, it's like smart meters. Smart sounds like a good thing, right? Part of Agenda 21 is to change our energy consumption patterns so that future generations don't suffer due to our selfish desire to stay warm within our own homes. Enter smart meters. Capable of communicating with the utility company, capable of communicating with our smart appliances, and allowing the utility companies the ability to adjust our thermostats and appliances if they deem that we use too much energy. Enter smart meters, capable of emitting radio frequencies at constant and high levels, capable of causing a plethora of unexplainable health problems, difficult to source back to the radiation being emitted from the smart meter. Enter smart meters, higher bills, privacy infringement, meter fires due to faulty manufacturing and installation, hacking by thieves, and did I mention the health hazards associated with the never-ending spikes and bursts of radio frequencies all over your property? Do I sound passionate about this? You bet I am. So let's get started. Find a relaxing seat. Prop up your feet. Turn off that darned radiation-emitting cell phone and get mad with me. You are enjoying Speak Up and Stay Alive Patient Safety Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau, always on the lookout for a guest who not only talks about making a difference, but actually gets out there and does it. He is Matt Lynch. He represents the 76th Ohio House District, which includes most of Geauga and northern Portage counties. So welcome to the studio, Matt.
Hi, Pat. Great to be here.
I met you this summer, and I don't know if you remember when I extended my hand to say hello to you. Do you know what your response was to me?
I don't remember, actually.
You said, Jerry the Germ.
Oh, yes. I probably did. That's right.
So when you shake hands with all of your fans, do you think of Jerry the Germ?
I do all the time. In fact, whenever I'm in Columbus, particularly because I'm shaking hands with politicians, and they have really dirty hands.
I'm sure.
I carry a pen sprayer in my pocket, and I spray my hands all the time. In fact, some of my fellow representatives laugh when they see me pull that out. But, I do worry about it.
You stand for something, right?
Absolutely.
Clean hands.
I stand against germs.
You and Jerry are on opposite sides, huh? But maybe you should meet his mom, Josephina Germophobia.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to meet her, actually.
Oh, scusa me, Matt. You don't want to meet Mama Josephine Germophobia? I live in your district. I vote for you. And I work hard to keep the bad germs like my son Jerry from making you sick. I have some political advice. Maybe you should bring Jerry and his germ bodies with you to Columbus so the ones making the bad laws have to stay home with the flu. I'm so mad about the smart meters, and I hope you can stop the terrible attack on our freedom. And I have one more advice that I hope my son Jerry will share with you. Jerry, what do you have to say to Matt?
Stay safe. Listen to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Tune in every Saturday morning. For more information, go to speakupandstayalive.com.
And Jerry, wash your hands.
I stand against germs.
Rolling.
You sure?
Very sure.
You have entered the world of Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio, and I am your broadcast hostess, Pat Rouleau, here not to tell you what to think, but rather to tell you to think, right? And what a better way to get you to think than to put a serious conversation within a silly game show format. Life-changing topics and thinking don't always have to be done in a boring way. That's why we so like to play our sometimes kooky games, and today is no exception. We've taken this juxtaposition of serious with silly a step further today. We have the State of Ohio Representative Matt Lynch here in the studio, ready to join the boys in a rousing game of shocking news from around the world.
Shocking news from around the world.
Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Pat. And I know the difference between shocking and what's a shock or a crock.
You listen to the show.
I hear a lot of crock down in Columbus.
All right.
Wow.
So you're going to be good at this. Here's how the game goes. And I'm sure there's not any winners or losers, but we'll see. I will read a statement, and you, our contestants, will have to decide if the statement is a shock or a crock.
Oh.
So let's introduce our players. Who do we have here?
Okay, I'm Bob from Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and I'm a former financial planner.
I'm Eric. I'm a regionally famous radio producer from Northeast Ohio.
Regionally famous. This is always good to have. And Matt, you can introduce yourself again.
Yeah, I'm infamous, perhaps, out in Geauga County, state representative.
Yay, we've got a good group here today. All right, and here's an added twist, guys. This is called the Agenda 21 edition, Behind the Green Mask. All statements have to do with this topic because even though this program is about healthcare safety, anything that affects us emotionally, mentally, or spiritually actually affects our health. And I think that awareness is the foundation for change, and in this case, intelligent resistance. Agenda 21 is also known as Sustainable Development. It is the global action plan to inventory and control all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all information, all energy, and all human beings in the world. Doesn't sound healthy to me. How about you guys?
No, I think that I can see a hammer and sickle flag flying in my mind when I hear that.
And just by the way, for all of you, if you haven't read the book by Rosa Corey, Behind the Green Mask, I highly suggest you find that. Go to Amazon or wherever. Behind the Green Mask, an excellent read. All right, guys, you ready to begin?
Let's go for it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So let's speak up and stay alive. Shocking news number one. While many support the United Nations for its peacemaking efforts, few know that it has very specific land use policies that it wants implemented in every city, county, state, and nation. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
No, it's definitely a shock.
Wow.
It is a shock for you. What do you think, Bobby?
Oh, it's definitely a shock.
Wow.
They're going to try to control everything you do. If you can control land, health, and water, you've got them by the you-know-what.
Okay. It's not that kind of show, Bob.
I know.
What do you say, Eric?
Oh, it's a shock.
Wow.
because, the United Nations doesn't just deal in peace treaties, but also environmental treaties as well.
Right. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. I want to read some things to you guys and you can comment on it afterwards. Yes, obviously it is a shock. Wow. And it is called Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, which has its basis in communitarianism. Basically, it is that the individual's rights are a threat to the global community. Yeah. It assumes that people are not good stewards of their land and that the government will do a better job if it is in control. Individual rights in general are to give way to the needs of communities as determined by a globalist governing body. Over the last 10 years, there has been a planning revolution whereby commercial, industrial, and multi-residential land was rezoned to what's called mixed use. Nearly everything that got approvals for development were designed the same way, ground floor retail with 2 or 3 stories of residential above. And by the way, along with this redevelopment, cities will have the right to take property by eminent domain against the will of the property owner and give it or sell it to a private developer by declaring an area of town blighted. This then diverts taxpayer monies from the general fund into the redevelopment fund, which forces the city to offer less services that further impoverishes the area. And I'm sorry to be so long, but I have to read this. In 1976, the UN Conference on Human Settlement stated in its preamble that, and I'm going to quote this, private land ownership is also a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth, and therefore contributes to social injustice. Public control of land use is therefore indispensable.
Pat, what you have just said is such a huge mouthful, and it should frighten everyone who listens to this program. The idea that a cabal of elitists in government are going to decide how we should live and restrain our liberty in the process is frightening, and it's real. We should be aware of it.
We traveled out west, and this show is aired also in Phoenix. But there's a town out there that was developed this way called RadiOh. We met some people there. It's on one of the mountains on the west side of Phoenix. And that's exactly what they did. They built a little town, put all the people upstairs, and that's exactly what they did. And the developers made money, and everybody else lost.
And what was shocking to me is I did not know about Agenda 21 at this time. And when we went out there and I saw this place and we got back in the car, I said to Bob, I feel like somebody just drew a little cartoon and this came to life. It was so bizarre.
It's scary when you see what happens.
Yes, it is. And the power of government to force people to do this and even willingly accept it is frightening.
Eric, have you heard about this?
No.
This is news to you.
Yes,
you got to spread the word, Eric.
Absolutely.
Well, and folks should know there are multiple YouTube videos that you can educate you in 15 minutes on at least the broad reach of Agenda 21 and what is now called sustainable development in this country and all around the world,
wow.
Really.
So let me ask you a question, Matt. What can you do as our state representative to stop redevelopment? And this was done in California by Governor Jerry Brown.
The issue here has to do most often with private property and local zoning. And so folks have to be aware, what is their local zoning department doing? Are they infringing upon your property rights in such a way to implement these kinds of things and really have as much impact as they can at that level? We have to educate the legislators because many legislators are completely unaware of this, or if they hear about it, they think you're part of the Tin Hat Club, that this couldn't be real. But it is real. It's absolutely real, and folks need to be aware of it.
Why are the national news media not talking about Agenda 21? Do you have any idea?
Well, it's not a very sexy issue. I mean, really, when you talk about Agenda 21 sustainable development, a lot of people kind of yawn. And so it doesn't have the kind of headline appeal that perhaps the latest problem with Obamacare has, or the latest...
But it's still taken away from your constitutional rights.
There's no doubt about it. And I don't suggest it's not important. It's critically important. But that's why you don't see it on the evening news. And it's also because it's very subtle. Mm-hmm. If you hear the term sustainable development or green jobs or, who doesn't want that? Unless you've really looked into this and understand what's behind those terms and how they're going to be used, then you assume it's okay. And there are many, many, many local officials that would absolutely say, I'm for sustainable development, having no clue what they're really talking about. Well, they're all over the state of Ohio. There's no doubt about it.
So we got to educate them. That's basically what it boils down to.
And you have to stand up to them. And luckily, we have people in Geauga County and in Northeast Ohio, all over the state, really, that are standing up to these issues.
All right.
Absolutely.
Couldn't make this stuff up, folks. All right, let's speak up and stay alive. Shocking news number 2. The United Nations Agenda 21 policies date back to the 1970s, but got its real start in 1992 when President H.W. Bush signed onto it along with the leaders of 178 other countries. Because it is considered a soft law, I guess, it did not have to be ratified by the Congress. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
I'm going to say that's definitely a shock. It's the same thing.
No, it's real. It's a shock.
It's a shock.
What do you think, Eric?
I think I'm shocked.
Wow. So, Matt, I need to help me understand this. How is it that something like that does not pass any other voting body?
Well, it's not a treaty, and so it's not doesn't have to go through the process of actually being approved by the Senate. But it is a goal, if you will. It's something that the UN obviously is behind. And many folks in this country are behind, sometimes unwittingly, but they're behind it. So it's definitely having an impact.
Well, the ones that are really behind it, I think, in our country, are the ones that are going to profit from it.
Well, absolutely.
The dollar amount's what I'm looking at there. It's not the middle income people. They have no clue a lot of times. It's the big dollar guys that are going to profit from it.
You know, it's always fascinating to me to see people accept the loss of their liberty for profit, not understanding that in the end they'll lose their profit as well. I was at a meeting of hospital executives recently who were very, very supportive of Obamacare. And are of course very supportive of what's happened here in Ohio recently, Medicaid expansion, which will bring billions more federal dollars in. They thought that was great. So when I suggested to them that maybe this was a good idea and perhaps we should just take over the hospitals and run them like we run the post offices and just let everybody be a government employee and they could all, wear shirts with a name tag on front saying Dr. Joe, they didn't like that idea. They wanted to plug into the government money.
But they didn't want they didn't want the consequences
That's
either.
right. They don't recognize that the ultimate result is going to be that they will lose their liberty. They will lose their ability to control the healthcare system. We as citizens are already losing control of our own healthcare. They're going to lose the ability to practice healthcare. And of course, trying to wake them up to that fact is what I'm trying to do.
I think that's beautiful. At least somebody's standing up.
Any comments from the back room?
I'm just surprised at the soft law concept. I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
It's a goal, so it's not a treaty.
So the following year, that was in 1992, President Clinton began to implement it by creating the President's Council on Sustainable Development and included captains of industry such as Ken Lay of Enron and nonprofit groups such as Sierra Club and the Nature Conservancy. One of their first tasks then was to create a guidebook for every city and town in the U.S., a blueprint in which to implement Agenda 21. So by 2002, every planning department, every local, state, and federal department that governs land use had a copy and was implementing those practices. Every university, college, junior college, private school, teaching institution was using Growing Smart in its curriculum. And that's how this thing got started and got some legs, if you would.
Well, we got to cut those legs off.
Well, it won't be easy because there are so many people that have jumped on board on this. And as you suggest, there's so much money to be made.
Absolutely.
Every windmill that goes up, and folks, I'm really not opposed to windmills if you want to have one. What I'm opposed to is the government subsidizing them and then forcing us to pay higher utility rates for the purpose.
That's exactly right. Next.
This is tiring. All right, speak up and stay alive. Shocking news number 3. If something is called smart, then it must be a good thing. Let's start with you, Eric. Is that a shock or is it a crock? He's just speechless.
Before today, I would have said that would be a good thing. I mean, it's smart.
Yes.
But no, I'm not so sure.
Oh. Now you know it's not. All right. What do you say, guys?
Well, I think when somebody says that they have a smart meter or a smartphone, I think what they're really saying is that it's smarter than you. It's really can be used as a form of elitism because after all, if it's smart, I must be dumb, right? So, and that's the problem that we sort of concede the victory to the smarter folks, right? I mean, they must know. Those guys in Washington must know what's best for us. We just have to, accept that they'll do what's right.
I think what's really strange to me, Matt, is I watched a couple of utility guys come out, and I talked to some of them, and they were clueless in regards to what a smart meter was. They were just hired to put them on. They didn't know that there was radiation coming out of them. And I think what really got me is the night that Pat and I pulled into the house, and on our door it says, "You have been chosen." And Pat says, well, "Let's get the bottle of wine out. Let's enjoy ourselves."
Yeah, because we're not going to be here long after the smart meter takes over.
Yeah, the research that she's done for this.
Well,
People need to hear it.
There are many folks, not just the installers of those meters, but people all through the utility companies and through government and through your neighborhood, willing cooperators in things that are really destroying their health and their liberty.
And they have no idea.
They have no idea.
You guys are right. It's the biggest marketing crock of all. One of the elements involved with Agenda 21 is the creation of a new language to go along with it, obviously called jargon. This new vocabulary has a different meaning for those in the know from what you and I would typically, understand just from seeing or hearing those words. Agenda 21 relies on the obscurity of their definitions to keep you from becoming alarmed. Words such as livable, walkable, vibrant, bikeable, consensus, conversation, progressive, community, diversity, carbon footprint, vision, green, regional, sustainable, and of course, smart. So when you hear jargon words like this, you are being conditioned to support and accept the project without questioning it because those words are generally considered good words. So I'd say the best public relation people in the world are working on these terms just for us. And now to back that up, like I always like to do, I'm going to quote J. Gary Lawrence, former advisor to President's Council on Sustainable Development, quote, "Participating in the United Nations advocated planning process would very likely bring out many who would actively work to defeat any elected official undertaking local Agenda 21. So we will call our process something else, such as comprehensive planning, growth management, or smart growth." So, this is a plan. This is not like just, oh, wow, that's a cute word. Let's call it that. This is calculated. This is trying to create the desired outcome. And it is.
It's manipulation. Controlling the language has always been used as a form of manipulation of the people. And that's exactly what this is about. It's fooling people into accepting their own destruction.
Absolutely. So I just want to bring awareness by playing this silly game here today, which is not so silly. All right, Speak Up and Stay Alive. Shocking news number 4. Common Core is a nationalized education plan that is also part of Agenda 21. Is that a shock or is it a crock? Have you heard of Common Core before, Eric?
I've heard the term, but I don't really know what it entails.
Okay, we'll talk about it. What do you guys think? Is that a shock or is it a crock?
I think it's a shock because Common Core wants to keep the parents out of everything.
Wow.
And that's not good.
Well, as I like to say, Common Core is Obamacare for education.
Absolutely.
It is a top-down, nationalized education system, which is designed really. If you can imagine an education system that has somebody living on a ranch outside of Dallas, Texas, learning the same thing in the same way as somebody in downtown Cleveland in the inner city learning it, you can understand how crazy it is, just in terms of its utility. But beyond that, it's also going to be designed to implement a social agenda. And so it's a very, very frightening thing. It has been adopted in most states in the United States, including Ohio. We have a bill in the Ohio House right now to repeal Common Core in Ohio. Think about this, folks. When Common Core was adopted in Ohio 2 or 3 years ago, it was adopted by the Ohio State Board of Education before the standards had even been published.
That's sort of like Obamacare, too. Before
let's
the
implement
bill was
it,
even written.
And then we'll read about it.
You have to pass the bill before you know what's in it. And those standards are being implemented today in your children's schools. It is a curriculum that, as parents, you will not like, you will not understand, and you will be told that you're not smart. That's why you don't get it.
And you'll be told not to interfere with the kids' education.
Absolutely.
So you're saying Ohio has a bill now to repeal this?
Yes, there is a bill in Ohio. Representative Andy Thompson proposed a bill to repeal it in Ohio. It has already had one committee hearing, and I'd encourage people to contact Representative Andy Thompson in the Ohio House of Representatives and offer your support for that bill, and he can keep you notified as to when the committee might hear it further. I have to say that the Ohio Department of Education is all behind Common Core. And much like Obamacare.
How much money are they getting
Well,
for it?
this is it. It's all about the money. With the adoption of Common Core comes millions and millions of dollars from the federal government. So they buy our compliance by offering us these subsidies. And who doesn't want the money?
Absolutely.
Every local school board wants the money, so they go along with Common Core, not realizing actually what they're adopting. And now we're years and millions of dollars into this. Nobody wants to turn around and say, hey, we made a big mistake. and have to admit the loss of all that money. But for the sake of our kids, we have to. I talked to a gentleman, and he told me how he pulled his kids out of the public schools because he didn't want them subjected to the Common Core curriculum. And he's absolutely right.
Is it going to come to the point that if you don't go through this Common Core curriculum, that colleges won't accept you?
Well, it could very well, because along with the curriculum, there's all kinds of testing that goes on. Mm-hmm. And the testing is the way they measure your success. And so if you're not teaching the Common Core curriculum, you're not going to measure up very well. And behind all that testing, behind Common Core, is really an effort to push people into certain kinds of programs. You're going to be a plumber, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be an engineer, and track those kids from kindergarten to college and push them into. It is the kind of elitist planning that when I was a kid, you'd read about going on in Soviet Russia and laugh about.
Exactly.
Because it's so incredibly inefficient. And not only inefficient, but it's such a restriction on liberty. And today we're doing it in this country voluntarily.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Let me give you a little background. It is a shocking tentacle of Agenda 21. Wow. If we start educating our young little soldiers, they will become compliant and go along to get along. All right. During the 2008 presidential campaign, Barack Obama committed to making sure that every child has the chance to learn by creating a global fund for education. That's good, huh? United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO's educational goals and Common Core are both heavily funded by activist and philanthropist Bill Gates. Mm-hmm. So the Global Fund for Education was formulated by the UN, agreed to by Barack Obama, and funded by Bill Gates, and Common Core was imposed on the American people through the Department of Education, as you said, with funding schemes, again, as you said, that includes strings. The taxpayers never had a say or a vote, and neither did the 45 states who initially signed on to the Common Core by adopting the president's Race to the Top program before Common Core was even identified. So this kind of was going on in the background.
Well, this Race to the Top, No Child Left Behind, I mean, this again is controlling the language.
Yeah.
But today, there's only one person, I believe, on the State Board of Education that was on the board when they adopted Common Core. Just one. And it never went through the legislature. So no one's responsible. But here this behemoth has been loosed onto our educational system, which is why we're trying to stop it.
I just want to say one thing too, Pat, that for the listeners that you've got in all the other states, I hope they get behind what you're saying here to go to their state legislatures like with Matt.
Absolutely. All right. Any comments on this, Eric?
No, I'm just spellbound here.
Okay, it's learning time. All right, guys, the Speak Up and Stay Alive shocking news number 5. On January 17th, 2008, President Obama famously said, "Under my plan of cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket." Is that a shock or is it a crock?
That is a shock. He definitely said that, and it's happening.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't hear it when he said that.
Well, Obama said that the rates would skyrocket. The idea that utility rates will be high and gasoline costs will be high is by design to force people off of so-called carbon emissions, because you can't put up a windmill or you can't put out a solar panel and make it be efficient. It's too expensive, and they're all subsidized. So in order to make them attractive, you have to raise the cost of all the other energy. The gas and shale deposits that have been found all through the United States, including Ohio, have thrown a real monkey wrench into that plan because it has driven the cost of energy way, way, way low. And it just makes all these other so-called alternative energies because they want you to be dependent on these other forms of power, no matter how inefficient they might happen to be.
And I just read today that in Spain, they actually taxed people for using the sun. There was a sun tax.
Well, part of what goes on with Agenda 21 is that nothing in the environment is owned by you. It's all owned by, quote, the people. Mm-hmm. So whether it's the water, the earth, the land, the air, the sun, the government has to regulate it in order to, and of course, whatever they regulate, they tax and control us by doing so.
Well, so when he said that electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket, it's now becoming evident that these smart meters are what he was talking about to force on you.
It's not by accident that those rates will skyrocket. It's by design.
How can we educate more congressmen What is it going to take? Us coming down there and getting in front of them, or what?
Well,
or would they listen?
Of course, thankfully, we've got radio shows like this to try to get the word out on some of these issues. But it is a large job, believe me, because you have to begin with the fact that so many folks elected to office only have an interest in their own ambition, their own political goals, and whatever fits that ambition is what they support.
They really don't work for the people. They just want to get elected to get paid. Basically what it boils down to.
You know, they want to get elected to serve their ambition.
Right.
And it's not so much about the money because you don't get paid much money, but it certainly is about having the position of authority that comes with elected office for many, many folks. I'd just soon go home and play with my grandchildren.
I can hear you. But talking about smart meters again, it's not like we don't have an option. In Sebastopol, California, the city council has just passed an emergency ordinance that classifies the installation of smart meters as a misdemeanor offense, punishable by a fine of $500, citing the potential risk to the health, the safety, and the welfare of the residents. And yes, the installer would pay the fine. The police chief announced that if the scene of an installation, he will enforce the new ordinance. So the California Public Utilities Commission is in the process of deciding whether it will permit whole municipalities to opt out of the installation of the meters. And according to the city manager, about 50 cities in California have adopted similar ordinances, including Berkeley and Santa Monica. So, I mean, we're not in California, but we should be able to do the same kind of thing.
I love that idea of actually penalizing the utility company for putting them in as opposed to making an option to get them out.
It's not a law. It's not a law that we have to have those meters. So if somebody comes on, trespasses on your property and puts this, but yet you see all of these stories where people are getting arrested, innocent mothers, when they say, I don't want this. They're cutting down chain link fences, kicking in people's doors. So I want to know how we get from here to what they're doing in California.
Well, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to get a copy of those California ordinances and see if we don't consider amending it into our smart meter bill in Ohio.
Oh, I think that's fantastic.
Because I think it's a great idea.
Excellent. Yeah, I will give you whatever information you need to make this happen. All right, guys, I am so glad you all played shocking news from around the world.
Shocking news from around the world.
And for our listeners, I think what we need to do is to read more, to learn more, to share this information. Don't be afraid to make a difference, to speak up. That's what this program is all about. Speak up and stay alive, whether it's healthcare or whatever issue it is. However you arrive at this issue.
This definitely affects your health.
And be engaged. Be engaged.
It
is absolutely essential for citizens to be engaged if we're going to control our own lives, our own health, and our own liberty.
Matt, how can our listeners reach you, get a hold of you?
The easiest way is always just go to my website, mattlynch.com, and all my contact information for both Columbus and my office in Bainbridge Township are there, and I'd be happy to chat with anybody about any of these issues, including Common Core or Agenda 21 or any liberty issues for that matter.
Excellent, excellent. Bob, thanks for being with us today.
Well, you're quite welcome.
Eric, thank you. I hope that we enlightened you today.
I'm just awestruck. There's a lot here to absorb.
Absolutely.
Need to look into this later.
Absolutely. We'll talk further. And Matt, always a pleasure to be with
Pat,
you.
thanks so much. It's fun to be here.
Thanks. Now, don't go anywhere, folks. I have a few emails I want to share with you that I received this week about this very topic. And if you're just joining us, you found a no-nonsense program. Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau, and today we are delving into the little-known yet in-progress world game changer called Agenda 21 that has so many tentacles and reaches into every aspect of your daily life that you may not recognize it for what it is. Our new healthcare disaster, the forced deployment of smart meters, our children's education, brainwashing, the metering of private water wells, and even bike paths? Yes, these are not random and separate issues. These are but a few that are part and parcel of a larger global picture. Agenda 21. So here is the first email. A listener sent this to me last week. I don't think these are his words, but rather taken from another source that I cannot verify. However, upon reading it, it has some teeth. He says, Pat, everyone is asking, why are kids going crazy and shooting up schools? Let's consider some potential reasons. For the last 20 years, with increasing frequency and intensity, children have been taught that the planet is dying and that they are the cause. They're also taught that they have the power to save the planet. Considering the fact that children are the most powerless of all people, this is an irresponsible thing to teach a child. The pressure and responsibility of saving the planet is fierce. Children are fearful, stressed, and learning nonviolent communication. At the same time, they are playing violent computer games. They are told that everyone is equal, but that they are bad and unfair if they have more than someone else. Children are taught to trust community and are also told that there are people who would steal them away, strangers who look just like everyone else. Children are taught sustainable development principles from the time they're in kindergarten. These principles are in every course and continue on until postgraduate school. I was sent a book that is used in a 3rd grade, Rethinking Mathematics. This book teaches students that every point of view is valid and should be considered, even when it is mathematically incorrect. Is 2 plus 2 equal to 5? Let's give that some consideration because no one should be made to feel wrong. What this does is to destroy certainty. Mathematics is beautiful because no matter how many times you do a calculation, if it's done correctly, you'll get the same answer every time. Certainty. The joy of certainty is destroyed for children, and rigidity is substituted in its place. Rigidity in thinking sustainably. Just like many adults, children are on drugs, mind-altering psychotropic drugs that many of them expect to be on for the rest of their lives. Many of these anxiety drugs have side effects. The world is a dangerous place. Artificial scarcity, panic over global warming, fear that farmland and water sources are disappearing. All of this in the United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. Fear is a vital element of this plan. Panic is necessary to block your ability to think clearly and to question. How can you be happy when you're taught that children are starving in Ethiopia and baby wolves are being killed and it's because you're using too much water when you're brushing your teeth? Children are being used as levers to change society and manipulate their parents. United Nations Agenda 21/Sustainable Development is the green mask, the vision of the glorious future, the joy of future sustainability. How beautiful it will be when we all ride bikes and take the train and live in apartments on the train line and work at nonprofits. We are there. This is the state of the educational system now with direct instruction, Common Core, mastery learning, outcome-based education. Children are being manipulated. Their open and impressionable minds are being taught to think in consensus, to be manageable and measurable and predictable, and to answer the question the right way, and to value sustainability above all else, or the planet will die. Children are being driven insane in schools. Wow, how's that for an email? Well, and on a personal note, this doesn't even address all of the wireless radiation bathing these young minds. Every classroom has smartphones, iPads, Wi-Fi throughout the entire school, smart chalkboards, incessant cell phones. I have no more words. So are you getting the picture? With regard to Common Core, Matt Lynch mentioned Ohio Representative Andy Thompson's bill to repeal Common Core in Ohio. It is called House Bill number 237. Let's get on board and contact him with our support. Here's his information. His name is Andy Thompson. Phone number 614-644-8728. 614-644-8728. And what a horrible name. Common Core? Do we all strive to be common to the core? Well, better yet, contact the Ohio Governor, John Kasich. The governor's phone number, area code 614-466-3555. 614-466-3555. As has clearly been established from the Ohio Department of Education, Ohio's students and teachers will have no incentive to do anything other than prepare for the assessments, teach to the test, and learn for the test. We need to stop this infringement on parental authority and local control of education. Common Core is set to be fully implemented by fall of 2014. We do have some time, but not much. Ohio does have the chance to adopt better standards than nearly every other state is stuck with. And you can also visit a very interesting website called Ohioans Against Common Core. It's www.ohioansagainstcommoncore.com. And now, here is a second and last email for today. Pat, I've enjoyed your segments on smart meters. There is a clear evidence of health damage. Tens of thousands of individuals are reporting officially to governments and utilities that they are experiencing illness or functional impairments following the installation of smart meters. Reported symptoms include headaches, sleep problems, ear ringing, focus difficulties, fatigue, heart palpitations, nausea, and statistically abnormal recurrences of cancer. According to court-ordered documentation and independent testing, utilities have been proven to be lying about how often smart meters transmit bursts of microwave radiation. Depending on the utility, their claim is typically something like 4 to 6 times per day or 45 to 60 seconds per day, whereas courts and independent testing reveal that meters are transmitting in the range of 10,000 to 190,000 pulsed microwave transmissions per day. But the health effects don't end with the pulsed microwave radiation from the meters in all of future smart appliances. Every smart digital electric meter has what's known as a switching mode power supply, which is proven to directly create large amounts of dirty electricity or high-frequency energy radiating through your home's electric circuits, essentially creating an antenna cage. When confronted, one government agent would not talk about this on his work phone, but confirm the awareness and concern of the dirty electricity health hazard on a private call. As stated by Dr. D. Kuhn Lee, a respected Kaiser Permanente scientist, utilities and industry simply haven't done any studies to show that smart meters are safe. Not one. In this complete void of responsibility or conscience, independent research is now starting to clearly show negative biological effects. Additionally, by many reports, there are now well over 1,000 home fires linked to smart meters, and tens of thousands have experienced other appliance breakage in their home. Amazingly, almost none of these meters, made mostly in China, have been tested or approved by UL or any equivalent standards body. As if all of this is not enough, smart meters are designed to collect swaths of in-home private data on everyone. According to a United States Congressional Research Service report, quote, police will have access to data that might be used to track residents' daily lives and routines while in their homes, including their eating, sleeping, and showering habits, what appliances they use and when, and whether they prefer the television to the treadmill, among a host of other details, unquote. But it gets worse. Utilities and public utilities commissions are actually encouraging the sale of this private data, everything you do in your home, to third-party corporate interests for a profit. And incredulously, even former CIA Director David Petraeus boasted that government will be routinely spying on through their smart appliances. Thus, the primary motivation behind the push for such legislation starts to become clear. And not only would every detail of your life be tracked, but your access to electricity would be totally controlled. Your appliances or entire home could be shut down at any time, without notice, by any utility or government agency, or, as former CIA Director James Woolsey states, a hacker on a cell phone in China. Newsflash, the NSA phone spying scandal is just the tip of the globalist iceberg. How's that for an email? Well, the good news, folks, is that this plan of control and out-of-order chaos cannot be achieved if enough people simply refuse to participate in this federally sponsored voluntary microwave and surveillance program. So, folks, I ask you in my best radio voice, please take action. Don't just shake your head, turn off your radio, and go run some errands. Pick up the phone, call the governor, call your local legislators, and you can find more information at my website under the Stop the Smart Meter category on the right-hand side of the page. Just go to speakupandstayalive.com. Remember, you have to speak up to stay alive. Well, because our show format is all mixed up today, let's continue and have a guest fest. Each week you hear a 2-minute segment from some of our radio sponsors, and today they are here all at the same time, a guest fest. We have Pat Schraff, an attorney at Schraff & King, Jack Warren from Comfort Keepers, Chris Alberta from Generation America, and Dr. Tad Roediger from Roediger Chiropractic. Wonderful people, my friends, and I encourage you to use their services. So let's begin with a short piece of advice from Pat Schraff, or as we call it, legal news you can use, all about advance directives. Well, Pat, Janice from Ohio asks, I've heard the attorneys from Schraff and King on your show this past year and wonder, I have an elderly father who needs this type of planning. What would they do during an appointment that would make it easier for my dad?
That's a very good question. It's very important that an older person feel comfortable in the discussion of healthcare concerns. First of all, the room should be comfortable. It should be clear that the person can hear what's being said. Typically, conversations with older clients are best done alone, the attorney and the older client. The conversation can be much more informal and can cover much more material in an easily absorbed way, so that simple questions can be asked and a determination can be made if there are issues around capacity, that the older person does have the capacity to sign such a document.
Oh, Pat, thanks for taking the time to help us today. And if our listeners need more information, where can they find you?
Well, they can reach us at 440-585-1600 or at our website at www.schraffking.com or with general inquiries at info@schraffking.com.
Well, thanks for helping us today, Pat. We appreciate your wisdom.
You're welcome.
And now I have a question for you, Jack, from Comfort Keepers about your home care services. You have a very cool and free brochure that our listeners should have. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. We have a brochure called 20 Questions to Ask Before Hiring a Home Care Agency. And in this brochure, we have a list of, obviously, 20 questions. Things like, does your agency carry liability coverage? Do you provide 24/7 telephone service? We give you our answers in the column and encourage you to shop other agencies to find out what their answers are as well. So if you would like one of these 20 questions brochures, we'd be happy to send you one free of charge. Please give us a call at our toll-free number, 866-942-1960, and we'll make sure we get one of these in the mail to you right away.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Jack. We look forward to your weekly advice.
Thanks, Pat.
Now, Chris, I have a question for you. Can you tell us how are you and Generation America different when it comes to choosing a Medicare supplement plan?
They're doing something, Pat, that is really unique. As opposed to looking for an opportunity to hook up with one carrier or a company with a couple of products, what they said to us was, how can we offer everybody who's a member of our organization basically a menu? Many people don't know this, is all these Medicare plans, most of them are exactly the same coverage. The only difference is the price that you pay. We work with probably upwards of about 50 different programs and carriers around the country, which is most of them. And Generation America hooked up with us and said, listen, how can we show our members every single program that's available in their zip code and then really break it down according to age and price so they never end up overpaying?
Well, thank you for spending the time to clarify Medicare supplements with us today, Chris. For more information or to join, visit generationamerica.org. And Dr. Roediger, you can leave us with a final question of this Guest Fest. Tell us, how can your chiropractic services help keep us well, safe, and out of the hospital?
That's a great question. I'd rather see somebody once a month making sure that their body, their joints, and most importantly, their nervous system works as close to 100% as possible so that their body can work and function and their nervous system can be 100%. And so checking somebody once every 3 or 4 weeks to make sure that they stay healthy, that they stay good. I had back surgery in 1986. Of all the things I wish I could undo in my life, I wish I could not have the back surgery and tried chiropractic first. But my wellness check for me is once a week. And that's so I can get on the floor and play with my 5-year-old. It's so I can run half marathons. It's so I can play golf. More importantly, work with my patients, okay, and still be active and not be hurting. And so mine's once a week. And a lot of times we'll find that ground for people. But I would love to have people come in first. We do have some patients that have been to other chiropractors before and they've moved around and they end up here in Chardon and they say, I just need my once a month or once every 3 week care. And we do that for them. And that's fantastic. It's so great to see somebody come in and say, oh, Pat, how do you feel today? I feel fantastic. Great, let me check you out. And usually we'll end up adjusting a handful of spots because using the activator method doesn't have to hurt. Vertebrae can get out of alignment and don't have to pinch nerves. That's one of the tough things to remember. You can feel good but you can still be out of alignment. Just like your car can still kind of drive straight, but it can start to get out of alignment. And if you went every 6 months or so and get a wheel check, maybe you wouldn't need a big wheel alignment in a year or so. And that's where I really think that the regular checkups once a month or so helps keep people really functioning at their best.
I encourage you to visit Dr. Roediger for a consultation. Call him for an appointment at 440-285-0756. Dr. Roediger is located in Chardon, Ohio at the Village Station, 401 South Street, just 1/2 mile south of downtown Chardon off of Route 44. Or you can always call him at 440-285-0576. Well, thanks to all of you. Without your support, we wouldn't be here. Short on time today, so be sure to visit the website to find more information about our sponsors, about smart meters, to get contact information for our local legislators, and to purchase my book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, The Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide. And do come back next week. I have an important patient safety guest named as one of the top women in healthcare today. This is an important show, and you are important to me. So tune in next Saturday morning. Until then, I hope you have a healthy and a happy week. I am Pat Rouleau, and I am your guide to safe and successful healthcare and hospital encounters.
The information provided in today's broadcast is for informational purposes only and was not intended for use as diagnosis or treatment of a health problem and should not be considered as medical advice. If you've missed part of today's show or just want to share the information with friends, you can listen to all of Pat's previous shows at speakupandstayalive.com. Until next week, remember, it's okay to ask others to wash their hands. You have to speak up and stay alive.
We were surprised when Dad brought up hospice care. I thought you called when you were all out of options, but Hospice of the Western Reserve has been helping care for Dad for some time now. I'm so glad we called when we did. Their support has given us quality time I'll remember forever.
With Hospice of the Western Reserve, you can choose when, where, and how you receive care. Discover why the hospice of choice is Hospice of the Western Reserve at hospiceofchoice.org.